Let me tell you how I, a perfectly ordinary guy with an equally ordinary life, got tangled up in what I can only describe as a telenovela written by Quentin Tarantino after a tequila bender. I swear, if Netflix ever calls me for rights, I'm selling the whole package, because what started as a sweet love story somehow turned into a circus featuring betrayal, toxic love, and a plot so insane you'd think I made it up. But no, the universe has a twisted sense of humor, and apparently, I was the punchline. We didn't meet in some cheesy romantic setting like the movies. No, she crashed into my life, literally, when she spilled an entire iced caramel macchiato on my shirt at a Starbucks drive-thru because she thought it'd be funny to scare me while I was picking up my order. I should have taken that as a warning sign. But nope, I laughed it off, because apparently my brain was on vacation that day, and just like that, I was hooked. She was wild, impulsive, the kind of girl who'd dance barefoot in the rain and posted on Instagram with the caption, "Feeling free." To me, she was exciting. To everyone else, a walking red flag. Fast forward 2 years, and I thought we were building something real, a future, a family, a nice little American dream with Sunday football and backyard BBQs. But turns out, the only thing she was building was a highlight reel of her cheating adventures. I didn't find out in the traditional way, like catching suspicious texts or lipstick on my collar. Oh no, that would be too boring for this toxic love story. I found out because her other boyfriend, yes, other, as in there was more than one, accidentally sent me a Facebook friend request and a DM asking if I was cool with sharing, like she was a Netflix password. I wish I could say I handled it with grace, but the truth is, I went full detective. I printed out messages, took screenshots, even made a conspiracy board in my garage with red string connecting photos like I was tracking a serial killer. My friends started calling me FBI Light, and the deeper I dug, the crazier it got. There wasn't just one guy, there were at least 3, possibly 4 if you counted the one from Vegas. One was a bartender, another was a yoga instructor, and the third? Oh, he was my old high school buddy. That betrayal hit like a baseball bat to the gut. Now here's the kicker. When I confronted her, expecting maybe guilt, maybe tears, she just shrugged and said, "Well, you weren't giving me enough attention." Like, excuse me? I was working overtime to pay for our apartment, your car, and that ridiculous saltwater fish tank you had to have because the ocean calms my soul. I mean, who cheats on someone who buys them clownfish? That's psychopathic behavior. And yet, as mad as I was, there was this ridiculous part of me that thought, maybe I can fix this. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe we can do one of those dramatic reconciliation scenes where we run to each other in the rain, except without the cheating and betrayal part. Spoiler, that's not what happened. Instead, she doubled down on the crazy. 1 week after the big confrontation, she posted a picture with one of the guys, let's call him Brad the yoga dude, with the caption, "Found my forever." The comments section was full of her friends cheering her on like she just rescued a puppy, not like she just detonated a relationship with the emotional subtlety of a nuclear bomb. Looking back now, I realized the story could have ended there. We could have gone our separate ways, maybe exchanged some passive-aggressive Instagram stories and never spoken again. But no, that would have been too simple, because this wasn't just a breakup. It was the opening act of something bigger, something messier, something that was about to turn into the kind of revenge plot you only see in courtroom dramas, where the lawyer slams a piece of paper on the table and says, "I rest my case." What I didn't know at the time was that she wasn't done with me. Not even close. She was about to come back into my life like a hurricane wearing lipstick and holding a legal pad, demanding things no sane human would ever think to ask for. And me? Well, I was about to find out that when you mix betrayal, money, and a toxic ex with a taste for chaos, you don't just get drama, you get war. If you think the story ends with her walking off into the sunset with Brad the yoga dude, sipping green juice and manifesting abundance, oh boy, welcome to Act 2 of this Shakespearean dumpster fire. Because just when I thought betrayal had a finish line, she came sprinting back into my life with the confidence of someone who's never heard the word shame. It started with a text, not a "sorry for everything" text. Not even a "can we talk?" No, this one said, and I quote, "Hey, so you're still paying my car insurance, right?" That's it. No greeting, no explanation, just that. I laughed, out loud, the kind of laugh where strangers in the coffee shop turn around because they think you're losing your mind. Naturally, I replied with the maturity of a grown man who's been emotionally drop-kicked, not unless the car is going to drive itself away from your new boyfriend's apartment. I figured that was the end of it, but apparently sarcasm was her love language, because the very next day I get an email, not from her, but from her lawyer. Now, when most people hire a lawyer, it's for serious matters. Buying a house, protecting their family, maybe fighting a parking ticket they're absolutely guilty of but refuse to admit. Her? She wanted legal representation to demand that I fund her new life. Like, fully. Rent, groceries, spa days, and, my personal favorite, joint vacations to maintain emotional closure. That's not closure, sweetheart. That's extortion with a yoga mat. I read the letter 3 times because I thought maybe I was hallucinating. Nope, it was real. She was claiming emotional damages from our breakup and the loss of lifestyle she'd gotten used to while living off my income. And here's where the toxic love went full nuclear. She wanted me to pay for her and Brad to take a trip to Maui to heal from the betrayal. The betrayal. That she committed. The mental gymnastics on this woman could have won her gold at the Olympics. This is where the revenge part of my brain woke up. Because at first I thought maybe she was just bluffing. But nope, she actually filed papers. I got a court date. A real, actual date to stand in front of a judge and argue why I shouldn't be financially responsible for my cheating ex-girlfriend and her new soulmate. You cannot make this stuff up. Well, you can, but in my case, you didn't have to. I showed the letter to my buddy Mike, who works in construction and has zero filter. He read it, shook his head, and said, "Man, she's not just toxic, she's radioactive. You need a hazmat suit just to read her texts." Mike also suggested I go full scorched earth, which admittedly sounded tempting. But instead, I decided to be strategic. If she wanted to play legal chess, I was going to play chess with a flamethrower. First step, hire my own lawyer, a woman named Denise who looked like she could snap a man's spine with her stare. She read the file, took a sip of her black coffee, and said, "We're not just going to win. We're going to make her regret learning how to spell lawsuit." Bassett, Denise didn't just see this as a case. She saw it as a sport, and I was her new favorite player. The weeks before the trial were colorful. She kept sending me settlement offers, each one more insane than the last. One included me buying them a starter home so they could begin their family without financial strain. Another demanded I transfer the title of my truck to Brad because he always liked it. I started to think maybe I was on some hidden camera prank show. I kept waiting for a TV crew to jump out from behind the bushes. But nope, no camera crew. Just her, fully committed to this fantasy where I bankroll her happily ever after. And while she was out there Instagramming latte art with captions like, "Healing takes time," I was quietly building my revenge file. Every receipt, every screenshot, every piece of proof that this wasn't just toxic love, this was a full-blown scam. By the time our court date rolled around, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. Ready to watch her explain to a judge why she deserved spa weekends and joint vacations with the man she betrayed me for. Ready to let the truth out in a way that didn't just clear my name. It would leave hers in ashes. Because this wasn't just about winning a case. This was about reclaiming my dignity, about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "No, you don't get to burn down my life and then send me the bill." And deep down, I knew. Whatever happened next was going to change everything. Court day, the day my entire life, my bank account, my sanity, my pride, was hanging in the balance. I woke up early, put on the sharpest suit I owned, and told myself I was walking into this like a man who had nothing to lose and a whole lot of revenge to gain. Denise, my lawyer, showed up like she was starring in her own legal drama. Black suit, red lipstick, the kind of heels that could kill a man in self-defense. She handed me a folder and said, "We're about to flip this case so hard it'll make her wish she'd majored in accounting instead of cheating." When we got to the courthouse, she was already there. My ex, in a white dress, not a wedding dress, but close enough to make it creepy. Beside her, Brad the yoga dude, wearing a linen shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest like we were all about to attend a spiritual retreat instead of a legal proceeding. They were holding hands like some smug Bonnie and Clyde, except their crime spree was just emotionally mugging me and then trying to invoice me for it. The judge walked in, this older guy with the kind of expression that says, "I've seen everything," but was about to discover he hadn't. My ex's lawyer, a guy who looked like he spent more time on hair gel than legal research, stood up first. He started with this long, dramatic speech about family values and how my client sacrificed her best years to support this man. Support me? The only thing she supported was a thriving network of side relationships and a nail salon membership. Denise didn't even blink. She let him talk, let him dig himself into a hole so deep you could drop a microphone into it and never hear the echo. Then, when it was her turn, she stood up, pulled out my revenge file, and started laying out the receipts like a magician, revealing card after card from her sleeve. Screenshots of texts, cheating admissions, requests for money for emergencies that turned out to be Coachella tickets, even a selfie of her and Brad captioned, "Love is all you need," with a geotag from a hotel I'd paid for. The judge raised an eyebrow. Brad shifted in his seat. My ex started fidgeting with her hair. And then Denise dropped the nuclear proof, bank statements showing I'd been covering not just her bills, but also some of Brad's, gas, dinners, even a $200 yoga mat. I could practically see the toxic love narrative unraveling in her head. But the real twist came next. See, a week before court, Denise had tracked down one of her other boyfriends. Remember, there were more, and convinced him to testify. The man walked in wearing a mechanic's uniform, holding a crumpled baseball cap, and told the court that not only had she been seeing him at the same time, but she'd also asked him for money, claiming I was too controlling with my finances. The judge's face went from skeptical to, "Are you kidding me?" in about 3 seconds. By this point, Brad looked like he was regretting ever learning how to breathe. My ex was staring at the floor, probably wondering if faking a fainting spell could still get her sympathy points. And me? I was just sitting there, feeling this strange mix of vindication and disbelief. Like I was watching a movie about my life, except the plot was way too absurd for Hollywood. Denise finished with the legal equivalent of a mic drop. "Your Honor, this is not a case of a man abandoning his obligations to his family. This is a case of premeditated financial exploitation under the guise of a relationship. It's betrayal layered with fraud, wrapped in the bow of entitlement." Silence. The judge took a long pause, glanced at my ex and said, "Case dismissed, and Miss Bani, ex's last name, I suggest you reconsider your definition of closure." Then he ordered her to pay my legal fees. Boom. Just like that, the war was over. Well, officially. Emotionally? This was just the first real breath of peace I'd had in months. As we walked out, Denise smirked and said, "That, my friend, is what we call a clean kill." Brad avoided my eyes. My ex muttered something about karma under her breath, which was rich coming from her. And I walked out into the sunlight feeling 10 pounds lighter, like I'd just dropped the world's most exhausting gym membership. Still, there was this part of me that couldn't help but think, this wasn't just a win. This was closure served on a silver platter with a side of poetic justice. Because she hadn't just lost the case, she'd lost the ability to spin her narrative, to make me the villain in her story. And that was the sweetest victory of all. You'd think that after losing in court, publicly, embarrassingly, spectacularly, she'd vanish from my life like a bad smell in the wind. But no. This is America, the land where sequels happen whether you ask for them or not. A week after the verdict, I saw her pop up on social media with a post that read, "Some people win battles but lose their soul. I choose peace." Accompanied by a photo of her holding a green smoothie, wearing sunglasses the size of small planets, and smiling like she hadn't just been legally smacked back to reality. I didn't comment. I didn't like. I didn't even rage scroll. I'd made a promise to myself, no more feeding into the circus. Because revenge had been served, piping hot, in a courtroom with a gavel soundtrack. And honestly, it tasted better than any fantasy I'd had about throwing a drink in her face. Life started to settle into something resembling normal. I got my Saturdays back. No more emergency texts about the car making a funny noise that turned out to be her forgetting to put gas in it. No more passive-aggressive arguments about why family holidays should be spent in Cancun, because the ocean is healing. I even started sleeping better, mostly because I wasn't subconsciously worried about waking up to find my credit card maxed out on retail therapy. But here's the thing about surviving betrayal. You get this weird, almost supernatural sense of spotting it in others. I'd be at the grocery store and see some guy on his phone, nodding too quickly, and think, yep, that's the voice of a man explaining why his Venmo history shows charges from Lux Couples Spa. It's like being bitten by a toxic love vampire. You develop immunity, but you also never forget the sting. Friends asked me if I'd date again soon. I told them I wasn't rushing into anything unless the person could pass my new cheating prevention questionnaire. Question 1. Have you ever used the phrase "we were on a break" unironically? Question 2. How many yoga instructors are you currently in contact with? Question 3. Do you believe in joint bank accounts before marriage? Anyone scoring above 0 gets politely escorted out of the applicant pool. Still, as much as I wanted to just laugh it all off, there was this part of me that felt lighter. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped carrying the weight of trying to rewrite a story I never wrote in the first place. She'd always been the author of her own chaos. I'd just been a reluctant co-star until I learned to walk off set. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Brad the yoga dude had moved out. Apparently, forever lasted about as long as a carton of almond milk. Rumor had it, she tried to get back together with the bartender boyfriend, but he'd already moved on, to a woman who, I'm told, owns her own boat and has never sued anyone for emotional damages. Progress, I guess. And me? I wasn't bitter. In fact, I almost wished her well, not the kind of well where she finds lasting happiness, but the kind where she learns enough self-awareness to stop starring in her own soap opera. I'd learned that revenge doesn't always have to be loud, messy, or even obvious. Sometimes it's just living well while the person who tried to ruin you has to sit with the reality that their best move failed. One Saturday in late fall, I took a solo road trip, windows down, music blasting, leaves swirling across the highway. Somewhere between the small towns and the gas station coffee, I realized I'd finally closed the chapter. Not slammed it shut in anger, not ripped it out of the book, just closed it, knowing the rest of the story was mine to write. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone dealing with betrayal, toxic love, or someone trying to drag them through the mud for sport, it's this. Don't let them turn you into the villain in your own life. Let them star in their drama. You stick to your script. Because at the end of the day, revenge isn't about destroying them, it's about reclaiming yourself. So no, there was no Hollywood reunion, no tearful apology scene, no slow-motion airport chase. Just me, free, a little wiser, and infinitely better at spotting red flags before they try to move into my apartment. And honestly, that's the best ending I could have asked for.